All right, look at that. We are live. And with that, I'm bringing Jack on. Hey, everybody, what's going on? Tim Street here on the Foolproof FISBO weekly live stream. Happy to have a great guy with us today. I was lucky enough to appear on his show, and he was gracious enough to come on ours. And can't tell you how genuinely excited I am to have him here. This is Jack Haas, and he's the founder of Deal Crew, and he provides what he calls fractional operations for real estate professionals. We're going to get into that. He's got two podcasts. As if you can't imagine somebody not being busy enough with just one. He actually runs Real Deal Cast and Real Deal Chat, which is impressive because I don't know how he can pull that much time out of his day. I struggle with just doing this. So this guy's pretty cool. After talking to him, I learned he sort of lives at the intersection of AI, real estate operations in a way that I found to be incredibly valuable. So I think everybody's watching here is going to enjoy this. So with Jack, hey buddy, welcome to the show and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Tim. This is great. I really enjoyed our conversation on my show, and yeah, that should be going live here any day.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. And dude, it's funny too. I didn't know you had two shows. That's incredible. How do you have the time for that?
Well, what's funny is that you say taking time out of my day. That the Real Deal Cast is a bit more of a nerdy channel. Like if you're looking to get into operations and implement some of these tools, all I'm really doing there is recording myself doing some of this stuff. So while I'm working, I go, oh, maybe I should turn on the camera and record myself as I'm. So
Dude,
that's what
that was his method. He was like, his whole thing was just do shit and record it, do shit and document it. And
right.
That was like, I remember like back in the early, before COVID came, that's all he kept screaming about. I'm like, who is this Gary V knucklehead? And why is and then next thing you know, the guy blows up like it's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been watching Gary V since he was doing his wine show. So that shows my age.
Oh, dude, let's not talk about age here. And I thought it was going to be really cool to have you on because, whether people are watching the show are maybe real estate investors who are trying to figure out how to scale, or even, people that are coming to hear me talk about how to sell your own home, regardless, they're running an operation. And I think a lot of people who find themselves in hot water, it's because they come into this without operations, without systems, without automations, basically no plan for the stuff that actually eats up their time. And I kind of think that's where you found your sweet spot in life, right? Is kind of teaching people how to do that, if I'm correct.
Yeah, not only doing that, but doing it for them in some ways. The FISBO thing is kind of an interesting one because I think a lot of people, there's a lot of things that I see as projects, if you will. And a lot of people don't see them as that. They just think it's going to be easy peasy and they're just going to kind of do it they figure it out as they go, build that plane in the air, if you will. I kind of like departmentalize a little bit and try to like, okay, what's the path to success here? What's the end goal and how do I get there? And in doing so, I have a tendency of kind of putting steps in place and making sure that I have some bases covered.
Yeah, that's smart. I think you and I kind of are very similar on that. I think a lot of, and this must be like, I know in the Marines, I learned this was the most complex things, the most complex initiatives can be broken down into a series of steps. And, running a marathon is simple, but it's not easy. It's simple in the sense of it's putting one foot in front of the other for 26.2 miles at a time. It's nothing, there's nothing easy about it, right? And I kind of, that's what I really enjoyed about when we had our conversation is I think you and I were kind of preaching to that same choir, like, look, yeah, things are complex, things can be scary, but if the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. If you're able to scale this down into small incremental steps, even massively complex things that people get paid a lot of money for can be handled on your own in-house if you understand the blueprint and the process to break it down. So one of the things that I would love for you to share with the audience here, what does it mean when you say you provide fractional operations for real estate pros? Because I after talking to you, I kind of get that. But if I was just coming off the street, I probably wouldn't have understood that. And I did use that phraseology when I introduced you. So would love to hear
Sure.
your take on that.
Well, I'm not the fit for everybody. I'm pretty transparent on that. What I do though is those individuals that are doing consistent deals on a regular basis, maybe they're doing a deal a week or a couple deals a week, and they're at that point where they're considering maybe even hiring somebody to help out, or but they know that in order for them to scale or to go to that next level, they need some of these things in place. Whether it's, I can't even tell you how many SOPs I've written at this point.
Yeah.
Getting some standard operating procedures and documentation in place to actually implementing processes and automations and integrate maybe AI in some of these things. They're ready to take their business to the next level, and they just don't have the bandwidth in order to get that done, or maybe they don't even know what direction to take. I'm just, we can go down a number of rabbit holes, but I'm running into time and time again where, as well as I, when somebody contacts you, you have 5 minutes, if that, in order to, that speed to lead is probably the most important thing a person can implement. And many people just frankly don't know where to even start.
Yeah. Who's primarily coming to you with saying, hey, Jack, I need a lot of help here. Who is it that you find yourself primarily serving?
Well, a lot of real estate investors that are typically buying distressed homes, or fix and flippers that are buying distressed homes, and they're working with those individuals on a regular basis. I've actually found another audience too. I've been helping quite a few realtors with similar situations, because they know for a fact that if somebody is calling to sell their house, they have a fraction of a minute in order to make sure there has to be a response to prevent that person calling the next realtor, calling the next investor. You have to get them at least to think, oh, somebody's working on this. I can stop, go on with my day. You
That's
want them to stop.
awesome.
You have
Yeah,
to stop,
I
get
don't
him
mean
to
to step
stop.
on you. I apologize. That is so important. I want people to actually listen to what you just said, because I know when I was an active real estate agent, that was 90% of the battle right there, was just getting them to just pause, listen to me. And if you don't have a great hook, and a hook, I don't mean verbal. I don't mean you're shiny and you're fast on your feet. I mean a hook saying, listen, I'm different, and different is valuable in this industry, and here's why. And so I'm sorry. I just want to put a fine point on what you just said, because that is such valuable advice, especially for a lot of agents out there who listen. I want them to hear that is so cool. So, Jack, if you can please continue down that path, I'd love to know. What is it that you tell people? Like, what is that pin that you put in the corkboard that gets people to just, all right, hit the brakes? I found my guy I want to work with. What does that look like typically?
Well, I typically, I can break it down as exactly what I implement in these situations. But in the end, what we have to remember, especially realtors, we have to remember you're not available 24/7. You're just not. You can't answer every single phone call. But if you implement a few things, you can at least be perceived that you do. So a great way is that I implement something that will, as soon as the person calls in, if you're not available to answer the phone, we do a text back like within seconds, just saying, hey, notice I missed your phone call. What can I help you with? Within a few more minutes, if you still haven't returned the call, we drop a voicemail onto their phone. So it looks like and it would be your voice. You record this call, this thing. We drop a voicemail. And then we do a series of updates. I call it no deal left behind. We go through a series of follow-up. If you're not continue to not be available, we're trying to get them to return your call. Not only does that mean that they're engaged, but that's another sell point, that that they've likely stopped the process of moving on to somebody else, and now they've kind of focused on you. Like you're the one that at least has gotten their attention.
You're speaking my language, and I'm going to have to ask you to forgive me because I didn't realize you went this deep into the relationship management side of everything. This is just so doggone cool, and I could absolutely see why real estate agents would absolutely love this kind of a setup because, again, what's the biggest complaint that you hear about real estate agents? It's that they're not accessible. They don't call you. I called that sign 15 times. No one ever got back with me. I mean, we as and I take blame on this. We have a very big reputation problem in this industry, and a lot of it is deserved. I always did my best to get back with people, but I'm sure, I guarantee you, there's times where I dropped a ball. God forbid, I was at my child's birthday party or on a flight to Des Moines for a wedding in Iowa or something. It doesn't matter why. There are absolutely times that in having that automated callback scenario is just so good. I was actually looking at for some, all of my business when I was a real estate agent, it was almost all either referrals from other people or outbound dialing. I called all the expireds, I called all the cancels. That was me. I worked the phones a lot. And it was hell. I was really good at it, but I hated it. I did not enjoy that. But one of the things I thought about experimenting with was the voicemail drops. And what was cool about those is, and you probably already know this, but some of them I've gotten so good that you can put smart fields in the voicemail drops. So if I have intelligence on who's calling me or how I'm calling back, it's not just, hey, I just missed your call. It's, hey, Jack, sorry, I missed your call. Now it's like, wow. It's, hey, Jack, saw your home on 123 Main. Would love to help you. Wow, that's really cool. So yeah, very, very smart. So
I use something. Well, I hate to interrupt you there, but I even use something similar for property management because I can, the rent line is used for typically two things. One is for call for a maintenance request or what have you, and others are looking for apartment, for example. So depending on the audience, the AI and the system treats those audiences differently. And you can do that in a number of ways regarding distressed homeowners or what have you. But for example, in the property management space, if the phone number comes in, it's unrecognized, it responds saying, sorry, Mr. Call, how can I help? But this goes down that AI rabbit hole where we can actually train the AI and put up the necessary guardrails to answer what you would like it to answer. So for example, in this scenario where somebody is calling in looking for an apartment, I have a spreadsheet set up. It already knows, the AI knows what units are available and the property details and everything. So it actually can answer basic rental questions without my involvement.
That's amazing. It's so funny. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I know I'm old enough to remember what would have been 2006, 2007. One of my really good friends, we started a company together called Crucial Contact. And this guy was so smart. And the guys we had on our team is Matt Simmons, Jared Barris, and Matt Barris. And these guys were so brilliant because they were ahead of their time with how IVR worked. And IVR back then was just saying, I want to look at 123 Main, and it would spit back out all this information about 123 Main. And they were so cutting edge doing that. And eventually that whole scenario evolved into you calling Amex to report a stolen credit card, and you're sitting there screaming into your phone, representative, human, put me in. And it's so annoying. And it's funny because I think we're going to kind of see this like bell curve over time, where in the beginning, it was cool to get an automated voice respondent. And then in the middle there, I hated it. I wanted to talk to a freaking human. Pretty soon, I believe we're going to hit a point where I will take an AI over a human any day. And I think we're getting there. And I think it's just such a wild time to be alive where, very soon, and I think within the horizon of our site here, the next few years, we're going to opt for instead of a call center attendant from a foreign country that I frankly can't understand, who also frankly doesn't give a damn about me or my problems, and their whole incentive is just to get me off the freaking phone. If I could actually talk to sort of an omniscient AI, maybe omniscient isn't a good word, but an AI who knows everything there is to know about that system, everything there is to know about their warranty, all their goodwill programs, man, I'd much rather talk to that thing.
Mhm. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. We're seeing advancements like we've never seen before. I mean, you mentioned Real Deal Cast. Part of that channel is when a new model hits the market, I kind of go through the announcement, try to analyze and try to break down what does this mean for real estate people? Like how will this change impact us, or how will it make things better? Um, and I know that kind of gets a little nerdy sometimes too, but it almost becomes a full-time job just staying on top of some of this information.
Yeah. Again, I'm sitting there talking about aging myself and feeling old, but I was also old enough to remember before we had the internet. We didn't have the internet,
Right.
and living through that transition and looking with the benefit of hindsight, right? Everything becomes so clear in retrospect, and there were people who they doggedly refused to accept the reality of the internet. They stubbornly dug their heels in and they said, whatever, people are still going to want a look in the eye and a handshake. I'll be damned if, we'll be able to cement deals, with a webcam. Well, are you nuts? That's how almost all deals. Sure. Is there value to interpersonal, in-person communication? Absolutely. 100%. But I think people are trying to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And
Mhm.
by saying, oh yeah, we'll accept nothing less than, a 14-hour flight to Tokyo and economy, and then shaking hands and looking people in the eyes and bowing and having sake, that's not really necessary anymore. And so what you ended up with was almost two different classes of understanding or realities where on the one hand you had people who were saying, listen, I'm not going to lose my job to this whole internet thing. But then the other people who said, look, I'm not looking to take your job, but I'm telling you, the folks who understand how to use this new tool are going to take the jobs. And I look at AI the same, very same way, or at least similar. I think it's a much larger, like by several orders of magnitude change from just delivery of connectivity, which is what the internet was, to now intelligent connectivity with that intelligent scaling every single day. And I think that we're going to end up in a spot where you have, again, two people who acknowledge reality, like, listen, AI is not going to take your job tomorrow. It might not take your job the next day, but eventually, either somebody who can wield those tools effectively or the AI itself absolutely will. You look at the milkman, the Avon man, travel agents, like all these friction points in the economy that went by the wayside once technology took down those barriers. And I think this is just another example of that.
Yeah, you're kind of feeding right into some of the things I've been saying. One of the big things that I'm really trying to be clear on is that right now AI, for example, is being used and crammed into anything and everything. You know, every problem is a nail, and AI is that hammer, and we're just gonna cram it into any and every solution. The situation though is that when you come to a provider like me, we're helping you build your Iron Man suit. I kind of just describe it as that. We still need you. You are in the heart of this process.
Yeah.
And all I can do is relieve some of the pressure in making things systematic and processes. Where you're going to shine is that human interaction, and where you're going to stand out right now is that human aspect to that sales relationship. So that's going to be your magic sauce. That's going to be actually what's going to make you stand out. We've all seen the AI slop that is being pushed out onto social media right now, whether it's the trend of people making themselves into action figures. You probably saw that trend for a
Yep.
while. To
Yep.
we're just seeing this over and over and over again. And you can actually see the social networks getting used to seeing that AI slop, and it just doesn't gain the traction as something that is genuinely created. So it is one of those situations. It will amplify anything in your life. And that means we can make your process better, but it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're bad at a situation, it's also going to amplify the bad. It's there's a number of things there.
Yeah, I do love the kind of AI wars that we're in right now, where everybody's always trying to one up the other one. You know, Grok will come out with something, then Anthropic will come out, then ChatGPT will come out, or OpenAI, as it were. Um, and it's funny too when you talk about the human in the Iron Man suit, because I didn't realize until I started using Claude. I didn't realize how important personality played in terms of
Mhm.
enjoyment of utilization of an AI. Like, you know, when I look at Grok, I kind of look at it as a tabloid. If I want to know any current events, I usually go to Grok,
Yeah.
because it's feeding in all the X data. If I want just a really cool calculator, I usually use ChatGPT. I've never used Gemini all that much, except in the Chrome search bar when it defaults to an AI search, but I've never sought it out. I've heard nice things. Um, but I can tell you, for day to day, Opus 4.6 is just amazing. Like I have probably consumed more tokens on Opus 4.6 in the last month than I have on ChatGPT in 6 months. Like, I mean, because the nature of the conversations change, and it does such a better job of, I don't want to say emoting, because you know I don't I, what I don't value fake sympathy, but I do value the appearance of empathy, where it can say, you know, hey, I've you know, I can understand why you're feeling this way, and here's what I would do to address these three issues. And it could be issues about, you know, supplements I'm taking. It could be issues about workout regimens I'm doing. It could be issues about dealing with tenants and you know, guests, things like that. It's amazing how important the gosh, I don't really know how to explain what I say, other than to say it almost feels like you're talking to a person instead of a robot.
Mhm.
And I'm amazed that even though I know there's a robot on the end, how much that has turned out to matter to me just by looking at my screen time and seeing what apps are getting my attention. That one is far and above away, and I don't think it's necessarily any smarter. I don't think it's any better. They're all large language models trained on roughly similar data sets. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.